Hello and welcome to Senior Speak New Hampshire on your Concord TV, sponsored by AARP. I am Karen Almer-Dorsch, the producer-host of this program and a volunteer for AARP, and I thank you for being with us today. You know, June is one of my favorite months of the year, and I suspect that it is for others because we have many couples that speak their vows of matrimony on this month. But my reason for loving June is that after the long winter and the cooler springs that we've been having since climate change, it is actually the first month that I really want to get out and enjoy long walks in nature. And I think probably a number of my viewers would echo that sentiment. And that is why I have invited Beth Venstermacher, who is the associate, help me out here, Beth.
Assistant
City Planner for Concord TV. And she's going to talk to us about the wonderful trails that we have surrounding this city. So Beth, thank you so much. And would you begin, please, by talking a little bit about your work and the Concord Trails system?
Sure, great. Thanks for having me so much. So yes, as you mentioned, I'm the Assistant City Planner for City of Concord. I staff the Conservation Commission and the Trail Subcommittee, which is underneath the Conservation Commission. And most of the trails in the city are managed by the Conservation Commission, and it's the team of volunteers on the Trail Subcommittee. We have 85 miles of trails in the city of Concord, which is amazing.
It is amazing. It truly is.
Yeah, for a capital city, that's one of the things that drew me to Concord was that we have these great opportunities to be outside.
And we do.
Yeah,
we do. Okay, so tell us about some of them.
Sure, yep. So one of the things that is really exciting is that the trails are spread throughout the city. So pretty much no matter what neighborhood you live in Concord, you have a trail close by. And that's something that they've worked on over the past 30 years, is getting more trails out there that are accessible for everybody.
So, Beth, I'm not from Concord, so within the downtown area or the city proper, are there trails that people can walk or begin? Or
the closest ones are probably Wynant Park, which is off of Pleasant Street. You can access it by the hospital grounds. So people that live in the neighborhoods there can access trails, even just walking out their front door. Walking down the street, they can get to trails.
How great.
Yeah, it's really great.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So, yeah, we have 31 different trail systems in the city. Some of them are really short. We have Russell Martin trails you can access from Melinda Ave or Iron Works Road, and it's really just a quick half-mile loop, but it gets you into the woods just for a quick jaunt. People take their dogs out there, and it's just really nice to be able to get out into nature even for a short amount of time.
Okay, and you mentioned dogs, so are all the trails animal friendly, or are there some that aren't?
Yes, so dogs are allowed on all the trails. So the way the trails are set up, a good portion of them are on city property, but some of them are on private property that we have a trail easement to get through. So some of the private property owners prefer to have dogs on leash.
Right.
So if you went on the West End Farm Trail through Rossview Farms, they request that dogs be on leash. If you're at Audubon Society, they actually prohibit dogs. Sorry, I should have said that before that one. We do have that listed in our trail system, but it is an Audubon Society trail system, so they set the rules, and no dogs are allowed for the protection of the wildlife that's out there.
Sure, great.
And right now, the Forest Society trails, they have, during breeding season, they require dogs be on leash, just so that dogs are in control and on the trail system. So within the other trails within the city, dogs are allowed off leash, but they have to be under control.
Wow.
Yeah. So
yeah,
everybody can get there. Some of them, the horses, people, if you ever went out to the Batchelder Mill Trails, which is by my house, there's a horse farm nearby, and they bring their horses out there. So that's always really neat to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
And you hear and see the horses come along. So some of the trails, horses do get out there, so you can see them while you're out there.
So what are some of your favorite trails?
Batchelder Mill, because it's by my house.
Right.
I can walk right out my front door and get there pretty quickly. And it's there's different loops that you can take so you can make it as short or as long as you want to make it. The Swope Park is probably one of the more popular trails that we have, and that one's really nice because a short walk uphill, you get these really great views over Pennacook Lake, and that's a really popular place to go and kind of just sit and take a look out there.
And not being familiar with the trails, are there some that are rather strenuous and others not, or how does that work?
Yep, so we have a wide diversity of trails. So the more difficult ones, Oak Hill Trails, which is in East Concord, they have some steeper sections and some rockier sections. Wynant Park has some steeper sections as well. So those are probably some of the more difficult ones. The ones that you'll find along the river, so Sewell's Falls, Morono Park, Kentucky River Park, those are all on flatter terrain. So those are a lot easier that people that don't want a strenuous walk or have concerns about walking uphill, those are easier ones to go and just take a nice walk along the river, great views, and it's easier to get out there and do those hikes.
And I'm interested in whether or not during the pandemic the trails were more widely used or what, because I know my husband and I, we live on a scenic road in Sanbornton, and that was about our exercise, you know, and it was about our company too. We'd say hi to neighbors, kind of, you know, and just go. But were they busy during that season, or this season?
Yeah.
We're still in it. We're still in it.
Yes, definitely. We saw trail usage really skyrocket because it was close to home, and I think it was that great opportunity for people. They didn't have to go anywhere. They could stay in town. And where before, I think a lot of our trails were hidden secrets, people really quickly figured out where they were and got out there. So we heard a lot actually from neighbors because there was parked cars were spilling out onto the street, so it started to become a little bit more of a concern, where before there may only be 1 or 2 cars there, there'd be, 15 cars out there. But I think that's quieted down a little bit, people getting back to work, and a lot more places being open for people to get out. But I think overall the impact has been that the trail usage has definitely increased since the pandemic, just because it's a great resource that people found out about.
Right, it really is. Yeah. Right. So if I were preparing to go on a trail, what should I be doing?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have different terrain out there. So we don't surface our trails. They're just the natural surfacing.
Okay.
So there's roots out there. There's some rocks, gravel. So really good footwear is very important. No flip-flops, sandals. I've done it myself. I'll wear my Tevas out there, but you end up with rocks and sticks in your shoes, and it's really not the best. So we really recommend like a good sturdy pair of sneakers is fine. You don't necessarily need hiking boots, but definitely, during the winter, wearing spikes or snowshoes and wearing a nice heavier boot out there. And then also during mud season, some of our trails get a little wet and muddy, so shoes you don't mind getting dirty that are waterproof, so that you can kind of walk through that mud and not have soggy feet, and that you don't mind getting dirty.
So that makes me think of another question. These are open in the winter?
Yes.
Yep. Do people ever ski?
People cross-country ski out there all the time.
They do?
Yes. So we have the West End Farm Trail, I know, is very popular for cross-country skiing. And I'll go out on Batchelder, first tracks are out there. Somebody's already been out there skiing. So yeah, people can go right out there and ski.
So they're open all year round?
All year round. Yep.
And what are the hours? They must be hours, huh?
Dawn to dusk is pretty much, and it's not something that's necessarily patrolled, but we just ask that people follow those rules just because for safety purposes, if something happens to you, it's easier for personnel to get to you during the daylight hours.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so let me look at my questions here. If walkers are looking for an easier trail, what are the best trails?
Sure. So Morono Park Trail, which is off of 2nd Street, that's along sort of an oxbow of the river and kind of like past the golf course, that area of the city. It's actually a sewer main access road, so it's gravel and it's maintained, so that's wide and gravel and flat. So it's easy to get out there. There's a parking area that you just cross the street. And really it's not considered, we don't have it graded as accessible, but it's a pretty easy walk for people to get out there. So that one's a good one. Kentucky River Parkway in Pennacook. Kentucky River Park Trails, not Parkway. And Pennacook is also a great one. That's pretty flat. Again, it's in an island between the Kentucky River and the canal of the Kentucky River. So nice views of the river itself and flat, easy trails to get out there. So those are a couple that I recommend for easy hikes to get out there.
And distance?
It varies. So as I mentioned, most of them we try to do some loops. So there's multiple trails once you get out there, and you can create your own walk while you're out there. So some of them, like broken ground trails, you could do I think it's like 1.25 mile loop, or you could do 5.5 miles. So really plan ahead. That's something that we definitely recommend. The maps are online, or there's a map kiosk at all the trailheads, and take a look, and the distances are listed on there.
Okay.
And sort of set yourself of what you feel comfortable with.
And as you're walking along the trail, are there distance markers, or are there, I mean, would I get lost?
You shouldn't get lost. So we have all of our trails blazed. So what that means is there's a color marking on trees that you'll see. So if it's a red trail, there'll be a little red rectangle painted on the tree, and just follow those, and that'll get you to either the next trailhead. But definitely, we always recommend take a look at the map ahead of time, just so you know ahead of time. Be prepared. You know, I'm going to follow the red trail, or I'm going to follow the red to the orange trail, just so you know what you're doing. We have started to put some signage out there with directions that'll say, you know, this takes you back to the trailhead, or this takes you to the vista overlook. So there are some trail signs out there to kind of head you in the right direction.
And are there any trails that have historical markings? Are there any historical markings?
Yep, so we collaborated with AARP a couple years ago for some signage, some interpretive stops, we called them. So the Batchelder Mill Trails, that's an old industrial center of East Concord where there was mills along the Mill Brook. And you can still see the rocks, the way they're set up. You can see how the mills were in an old dam. So we have signage out there that gives history of the mills. And then it gives a little bit, as you walk along, you'll find these interpretive spots that'll just give you a little more information. So we have them there, and then we also have them at the Riley Trails off of Hoyt Road, and that's near the Hoyt Marsh, which Fish and Game maintains as a wildlife area. So we have historic signage, but also sort of wildlife signage that gives you information about what wildlife that you'll see out there.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture, as I drive to Concord, I'm trying to picture, okay, here's Hoyt Road, where, you know, where this might be, and so on. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so how should I prepare? You know, you mentioned the footage, the good sneakers and whatnot. What about clothing? What about, because we have black flies, and we have ticks, and we have
mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. So what should I have with me? I probably ought to have a little backpack or something, right?
Yeah, or just a little bag or a jacket with pockets or something. But definitely in your car when you get there, bug spray. Definitely you're going to need bug spray. And there's ways that you can treat your clothing for ticks. There's permethrin.
Yeah.
I use peppermint oil. So if you're looking for something that's non-toxic, there's some essential oils that are out there. I know there's some local companies that actually make tick spray that's more natural.
Right.
So I use those, and I've had success with that. But also, you know, those lint rollers that have masking tape almost. So when you come back, if you run that up and down your legs, that'll pick up any ticks that are on you.
Good idea.
Yeah. So that's a good
I'll have to remember
practice.
that when I go out in my yard.
Yeah. It's very helpful.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, that was, somebody brought that up when I gave a presentation a few years ago, and it's a really great idea.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so preparing for bugs is number one. Always dress in layers. Always recommend that, because it may seem like it's a little chilly, but once you get going and moving, you make it a little warm. So, you know, if you have a long sleeve shirt, have a short sleeve underneath that you can take off or feel comfortable with. Shoes, bug spray, water.
I was going to say water, probably.
Water bottle, bring that with you.
On any of the trails, is there is there a picnic area or anything like that where people might?
We don't have picnic tables set up. You could, you know, bring a chair. We have some benches. So any of our trails that have benches, it's marked on the map.
Oh, good.
Oak Hill Trail is probably where we have most benches. We've had some donations that people gave benches in honor of somebody. Swope Park, there's a couple benches. So you can go out there, sit on a bench, and have a picnic.
Yeah.
I've been out the Morono Park trails during the pandemic. I went out there a couple times, and people brought blankets and were picnicking along the river,
Right.
which was nice because there's some grassy areas that you could just picnic on a blanket while you're out there.
Okay, so people could make a day of it.
Yes, definitely. And also, speaking of making a day of it, we have the Carter Hill Connector Trail, which comes off of Swope Park or District 5 Road, and that brings you right to Carter Hill Orchard. So you could go up there, get cider donuts, get an apple. So during the fall time, that's a great destination trail to go on.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yep, and then Diamond Hill Farm, there's trails out there, so you can purchase there. Rossview Farm, there's trails that go there. So there's some farms that you can hike to and really support local agriculture.
And the farms, I know that Carter Hill Orchard is one where they have more than farm. I mean, they do a lot of things, because I think we've had some ice cream nights out there.
Okay.
So are there other farms like that where people could go in and?
Yep, Diamond Hill Farm. They have a farm stand that you can go in there and get food. And then Rossview Farm, they're open for pick your own fruit. So you'd have to look throughout the year.
Yes, right.
I don't think they're open as much as Diamond Hill and Carter Hill, but check their website for information about when they're open.
If you have grandchildren,
Yes.
what would be your recommendation for a trail to take them on with you? Because naturally, this is a generational.
Yep. A fun one I would think is the Forest Society trails, Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. They are on the Merrimack River in East Concord, and there's pretty easy trails that you kind of loop through. They have some educational information, but you can also get to a point where you can dip your feet into the river. So they have a low beach area that you can go into. So I think that's kind of a fun one to go out to, because it's easy walking for everybody, and there's just really nice walks along the river, and then kind of a destination point you could get out there and during the summer, go for a swim or just walk right into the river there.
And not being a trail walker, because I walk on my road, are bikes allowed? Bicycles?
On some of them, yes. Most of the city-owned properties, they are. The one I just mentioned, Forest Society, does not allow bicycles.
Right.
Rossview Farm, the West End Farm Trail that goes through their property, and the Carter Hill Connector do not allow. Those are both private properties that have trail easements through, and they do not allow bicycles. But most of the other trails do allow bicycles. And we have all that information on the trail map. Before you go out, you can check that out.
Okay, so how do people obtain this information?
Sure. So we have a trail guide, which I brought one here. So we sell this at the planning department, the third floor of City Hall. It's $11, but it's nice. It's like colored.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at it, the colors that are on here will match the colors that are on the trees.
On the trees. Oh,
so
terrific.
That's nice to have it in color. But if you go to concordnh.gov/trails, you can find all this information. There are PDFs that you can download. Once you get out to the trail, and the good thing about these is they have directions to the trailheads. And there's a little bit of information that you can read ahead of time about the trail if you want.
Oh, nice.
And then once you get to the trailhead, there's kiosks that have the maps that are there. We've started to put QR codes so people can scan the QR code, and that'll bring the map up on your phone. So that's helpful. There's some apps that have the trails out there. We caution, because we don't monitor the apps, and there are some, we call them rogue trails that are potentially they're popularly used, but we don't maintain them or own them. So we ask people to stick to the marked trails, not only just to respect private property owners and protect wildlife. The trails are specifically designed where they are to protect wildlife, to avoid sensitive areas, and to protect private property owners, but also the police and fire department have these maps. So if there's ever an emergency, it's better to be on a city trail because they can find you, as opposed to other trails that maybe you'll find on Strava that people just go out to. The police department does not have that information. So if you're within the city, sticking to the trails that you find in our guidebook are the safest places to go. So we ask you to stick to that.
And that makes me think of another thing. Probably very wise to have a cell phone with you or some kind of apparatus that you could call for help,
Yes.
right?
Yep, definitely. I
Yeah.
would bring it, that.
Yeah.
There are, some of our trails are really close to residential properties. If you ever ran into anything, you could probably sneak into
yes.
someone's
Right.
backyard and knock
Yeah.
on their door, but definitely having a fold with you and letting people know when you're going out there
Exactly.
is important.
Letting friends know, okay, we're hiking today, or we're doing this, or we're going to do this trail, or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's smart.
Yeah, so just being
Just
prepared.
smart.
And then, I forgot what I was just going to say, but definitely letting people know where you are, being able to call. And then I know some people that may not be familiar with this, always try to go out with somebody else, kind of go out in a group. We do have, the Trails Committee is doing group hikes.
I was going to ask if there were certain times when somebody could join a group.
Yep.
And how can they find that information out?
So we have, if you go to that same website, concordnh.gov/trails, we have an announcement at the top that'll tell you when the next hike is. And we have an Instagram page, a Facebook page. And if you want to email me, hopefully we can put my information up at the end. I can get you on a list, and I send out a blast email to people when we're planning the
Okay.
next one.
Uh-huh.
So it's usually, we just had one on the 21st, and 20 people showed up.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, we would maybe get 8 people that showed up.
Wow.
And we stopped doing it during COVID. We just started back up last month, and the first hike we had over 30 people. So it's a testament to people really wanting to get out there
Yes.
and being with people.
And that's so exciting. You know, I am a firm believer that one of the reasons that we have the disturbance that we have in depression, etc., is that so many of our young people, and not necessarily young, have lost their contact with nature.
Yeah.
And I know there are doctors who agree with me
Yep.
that, you know, ecotherapy and whatnot is just so big. And when I walk, I just feel like I'm a part of the world. You know, I mean, I recognize that I'm a little tiny speck and that there is this beautiful, beautiful natural world around us. And, you know, all of the stages of life are right there. Yeah. There's new growth, there's old, there's dying, etc. And I just think it is so important for people to have that feeling of centeredness.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned trail maintenance. Mm-hmm. And so because you don't, how do you maintain the trail?
Mostly through volunteers. So we have a pretty strong group of people. We call them trail stewards. We have
Great.
1 or 2 assigned to each trail, and they go out there. We have them do spring and fall checks, but then we just kind of have them throughout the year go out while they can. So kind of the lighter work they can do, or we'd have sort of maintenance parties where we'll have, you know, if there's a bigger project, try to get more volunteers out there during a 2-hour period of time to tackle a project. But we also have a consultant city forester, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting. He'll do the chainsaw work. So if it's a big tree, he'll go out there with his chainsaw. Or if a bridge needs to be fixed or built, he's amazing. He's been working here since 1987, so he's very familiar with the trails. So all that work, one of the good things about the trail system is it's self-sustaining. So it's mostly volunteer work, and anything that needs to be paid comes from the forestry fund, which is replenished when we have timber sales. So it's not coming out of the tax dollars. It's just if we have a timber sale, whatever money we make goes into this fund, and we can take from that to pay for the trail stuff.
Okay. And if one of the viewers wanted to volunteer, how do they go about doing that?
Sure, they can email me, and I can get them on a list. We have a lot of volunteers right now, so I just say we don't often have big work parties, but it's a carry in, carry out facilities that not everybody follows the rules.
Right.
So if you're out there, if you want to bring a trash bag and just pick up while you're out there, that's a huge help, even the trailheads. The city has a blue bag program that you can do through general services, and it's a free trash bag that you can get and then leave it on the street and notify them when it's ready. So there's opportunities to just do cleanup on your own, which I think is a bigger help.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, I carry in, carry out. I'm all for that.
Yep.
I mean, you know, when I walk out of the supermarket and I see one of those masks on the pavement, it just makes me so disturbed. I think, why? Because Mom Nature is hurting, and we really need to help her.
Yes.
Well, people, again, I really hope that you take the opportunity to get out and enjoy the many, many opportunities that you have to be with nature and maybe your grandchildren or your spouse or your significant other or whomever, and really enjoy this coming summer. And Beth, I thank you so much for being here. That's been very, very helpful. So any of you that need to contact Beth, she has given you the information that you need. And until we meet again, be good, do good, be one.